Hari Om. Today we will proceed with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, from verse number 20. In the verse number 19, which we discussed in the last session, the Lord said that knowledge, action, and doer, that is jnanam, karma, and karta. These three things the Lord said are of different qualities depending on the individual gunas of a person. It will vary from person to person. So depending on the gunas a person has, his knowledge, his actions, and the type of doer, the karta he is, will depend on the type of gunas. And it is important for us therefore to understand that if we have sattvic gunas which are predominant, definitely we will seek right knowledge. And once we seek right knowledge, then our actions also will be righteous. So now Krishna is going to explain to us in the verses from verse 20 onwards the three types of knowledge, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, three types of action, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, and three types of karta, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Let us see what is the difference. So in verse 20 first we must understand everyone pursues worldly knowledge, and worldly knowledge is important for us to make a living. However, it is only when we back up this worldly knowledge with spiritual knowledge that will make our human life complete. So according to the scriptures, there are four goals of human life, or known as purusharthas. One is called kama or desires. The other goal is called artha or possessions. And both these kama and artha, desires and possessions, we can fulfill through worldly knowledge. But to fulfill the other two goals of human life, dharma and moksha, we need spiritual knowledge, which is knowledge of the self. Who am I in reality? So in this and the next two verses, Krishna will divide this spiritual knowledge into three types: sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. One group of people who are not exposed to spiritual knowledge, or who have no belief in the words of the scriptures, they accept themselves, that is this body, this mind, as the only reality. They do not believe there is the existence of Atma in the body, or that Atma is eternal and Atma existed before the body and will continue to exist upon the fall of the body. This type of knowledge, the Lord says, is tamasic jnanam, tamasic knowledge, which is explained in verse number 22. Another group of people, they accept the existence of Atma. They also accept that Atma is the enlivening principle of the body. Upon death, the Atma will leave this body. It will travel to another body or to another loka. They also believe that in everybody, every individual, everybody has their own individual Atma. Meaning they believe that there are multiple Atmas. As many millions of creations there are millions and millions of Atmas. And these people also believe that Atma has the punyam and papam and travels to different lokas because to exhaust this punyam and papams. And they believe that they are the traveling Atma which is separate from the body, and if I do good deeds, I, the traveling Atma, will have a better next life. This is called rajasic jnanam, which is explained in verse 21. Then there is a third group. They claim that other than the body and the traveling soul, there is a third higher self, which is of the nature of Ch18, the eternal, all-pervading consciousness, and they believe that I am that external, all-pervading consciousness that does not travel. This is Sattvic Jnana. Now the question may arise, what is the difference between traveling soul and the soul that does not travel? Traveling soul, we must understand, that which leaves the body is the subtle and causal body. Subtle body comprising the mind, the intellect, the ego, the causal body comprising all our past karmas, our past impressions. These are the ones that travel together with what is called the Chidabhasa, which is known as the reflecting consciousness. This traveling soul is the Karta, is the Bhokta. This traveling soul has Punyam and Papam. The non-traveling soul is neither the subtle body, nor the causal body, nor the reflected consciousness, but the original consciousness. Just like sun is only one, but if I put 100 mirrors, there are 100 reflected suns. So the reflected sun is known as Chidabhasa, or the traveling consciousness, but the sun is known as the Atma, which does not travel, which remains fixed in one place all the time. So, knowing this, let us now start with verse number 20, where Krishna will speak about Sattvic knowledge. So, Krishna defines Sattvic knowledge as yena, that through which Ch18, one sees. Again, when the scriptures use this word sees, it does not mean using the physical eye, but it means through deep introspection. Because the Atma cannot be physically seen, but it must be understood through our introspection. We attain knowledge and then we reflect on that knowledge. So Lord says that through which one sees what? Sarva Bhuteshu, all the beings consisting of all the causal plus subtle plus gross forms, who are subject to birth and death, arrival and departure. This person sees or realizes that all the creation is vibhakteshu, which means it is diversified. We see the creation which is divided, which is distinct from each other. So the creation that we see has got different shapes. Each creation has got its own shape, size, color, behavior. So in and through all this diversity in the creation, one sees. It is not that the wise person does not recognize that there is diversity. He sees the diversity in creation, but because he has the right knowledge, what does the right knowledge tell him? The Sattvic knower only sees or realizes, discerns that the Atma, here the Atma is called in this verse as Bhavam, the entity, the all-pervading, eternal consciousness, self-effulgent bliss. So there are three descriptions which are given to this Atman in this verse. Number one, Sri Krishna mentions that the Atma is avyayam. It is immutable. It does not change. It is imperishable. So it tells us that this Atma is different than what we see in the creation, because everything in the creation is subject to birth, decay, change, and finally it perishes. However, this Atma is different than what we see in the creation, the diversity. This Atma is not subject to birth and decay and death. So it is known as Avyayam. Second quality given in this verse is about the Atma, it is avibhaktam, which means it is undivided. Even though we see that there is Atma in this person, there is Atma in that person, there is Atma in the bird, there is Atma in the insect. Everywhere Atma exists. In that diversified creation, Atma exists in everything. But actually speaking, Atma is only one. It appears that it has been diversified, but actually it is only one. A simple example I can give you is pot space. If we take one pot, there is space in the pot. If we take another pot, there is also space in the pot. It appears to us as though the space is divided. There is different space in this pot, there's different space in that pot. But actually speaking, there is actually only one space. It appears divided because it is encased by the pot. So in the same way, Atma is also undivided. That is the second quality. So you don't have a different Atma, I don't have a different Atma. All the Atmas are one in the same. Third quality given here is Ekam. Ekam means there is only one Atma. There are no multiple Atmas everywhere. There are no different Atmas. One person may be tall, one person may be short, you can have an elephant, you can have an ant. It does not mean that Atma is in different proportions everywhere. No, it is only Ekam, it is only one. There are no multiple Atmas. So these three qualities, what we call a discerning person, he sees this one quality, this one Atma, which is existing everywhere in this diversified creation. When one has that type of vision, that one sees the oneness in this whole diversity, in this whole diverse creation, then the Lord says in this verse, Vidhi, know, that such a kind of inner vision, such a kind of clarity of intellect, where one discerns the existence of this one single unity in all the diversity, the Lord says that knowledge is Sattvic Jnana. It is Sattvic knowledge, it is the right knowledge, it is pure knowledge. So one should understand that this is the knowledge that we must all come to acquire and come to believe in. Next verse 21, the Lord speaks about Rajasic knowledge. And the word tu is there, tu, which means but, means to indicate that is a different type of knowledge which has been different from the one described in verse 20. So verse 21 is a different type of knowledge, Rajasic knowledge. This Rajasic knowledge is believed or by a group of people who have Rajasic dominant nature. They believe there is a soul apart from the body, and this soul will travel to take another body. When this body dies, the soul leaves the dead body and comes and takes another body. So they believe in the existence of many souls, because as many bodies as there are, so many souls are there. So every time there's a death, this person's soul travels, that person dies, that person's soul travels. They don't believe in the one universal, all-pervading soul. So the Lord says, Yat Jnanam, that knowledge, by which one V20 apprehends, sees, recognizes Sarva Bhuteshu in all the beings, meaning in all the creation, one sees Prathakvena, divergent, indefinite, endless shapes, forms, sizes, colors. When the person looks at the diversity in creation, he sees different shapes, size and colors. But what does he realize? Nana Bhavan, various entities in each body, Prathak Vidan, as distinct in character. So he sees that everything in creation, which is diverse, each of the objects or people in creation, each of them have their own individual Atma. So everything in creation, this person believes, has got its own individual personal Atma. So in terms of Punyam and Papam, that individual Atma in that person will travel to another body according to the Punyam and Papam of that person. And the Lord says here, with thee, know, touch, that type of jnanam, that type of knowledge, to be rajasic. Now, what about tamasic knowledge, which is given or explained by the Lord in verse number 22? Again, he uses the word tu, which indicates that this is some different knowledge again. Different from sattvic knowledge, different from rajasic knowledge. It is tamasic knowledge. So, the one endowed with tamasic knowledge, we must understand, has no faith, has no belief in the words of the scriptures, does not believe in punyam and papam, does not believe in the existence of Atman, whether traveling or otherwise. This person believes that the body is everything there is. They say there is nothing other than that. So the Lord says a person who has tamasic type of knowledge, yet whose belief is saktam, confined to, he strongly accepts ahetukam without any logical reasoning. Ahetukam means this tamasic person does not read the scriptures, does not listen to spiritual talks, does not listen to the Guru, but based without any logical reasoning or justification. So here the word hetukam, hetu means justification. Ahetuka means devoid of that justification or without any proper inquiry or reflection. So tamasic people say, I am only this physical body, there is nothing else besides that. And if you tell them science also says the body consists of matter and matter is insentient, then how come the body can be sentient? They cannot give any logical explanation. So what is their belief? They say ekasmin, one single karye. In fact, this whole gross creation, including this body, has come from one single effect. Kritstavit, as it were the whole, as though there is nothing in existence here apart from that one individual gross effect. So this whole creation has come about by the gross transformation of the 5 elements. And when this body perishes, everything goes back to the 5 elements. There is no such thing as Atman, there is no such thing as what you call the body perishes. They believe that the body also perishes. Whatever is life or what is consciousness in it also perishes at the same time. And if you point out to them that the scriptures are talking about the existence of the imperishable Atman, they will claim that Atman is the body, there is nothing else beside that. So such a person who has knowledge that is devoid of any logical reasoning and is deemed as tamasic knowledge, the Lord said is atatvar dhavat, not concerned with truth. He or she does not accept the logical explanation of the scriptures, the experience of the saints who have realized the soul. They don't accept all this. So the Lord says this knowledge of Atman, this knowledge which exists, these tamasic people consider it as alpam, as trivial. They don't accept it, they consider it as insignificant knowledge. Because they say nobody has experienced or seen the Atman. So this knowledge is of little or no importance to me. Insignificant, shallow. It will not help me to gain any benefit in life to have this knowledge of the self. In fact, the greatest advantage of gaining this knowledge is that it removes our greatest insecurity. The greatest insecurity of a human being is fear of mortality or fear of death. Ignorance of this knowledge keeps us bound in a constant sense of insecurity because we accept that we are this mortal body. We don't accept that we are this immortal self. We will always continue to have this insecurity. So the Lord concludes by saying that type of knowledge or reasoning, udaritam, is said to be tamasic. So the three types of knowledge has been explained, and we have to understand that sattvic knowledge comes from the study of Vedanta, the study of Bhagavad Gita, study of Upanishads, and study of the Vedic portion, which is the Vedas. There is a portion known as Jnana Kanda, which explains everything about the Atman. The Jnana Kanda portion is that portion that contains the Upanishads. So that is called, when we get knowledge from the Jnana Kanda, from the Upanishads, from Bhagavad Gita, that knowledge is sattvic knowledge. Rajasic knowledge is based on the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, which deals with rituals and prayers, punyam and papam, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. And tamasic knowledge neither accepts any teachings, whether karma kanda or jnana kanda, but instead relies on its own faulty reasoning. So now the Lord has explained about knowledge. Now in verse number 23, he talks about the next topic, which is karma, action. And for karma or action, there is sattvic karma in verse 23, rajasic karma in verse 24, tamasic karma in verse 25. So the three types of karma will be defined by two factors. In verses 23, 24 and 25, the Lord will explain that also the motive behind the karma is very important. So it is not only the action, but the motive also is very important. And second is the method of the action will be explained in 26 verses 26, 27 and 28. So now let us talk about sattvic karma. Let us understand what is sattvic karma in verse number 23. Sattvic karma. So if we do action, it doesn't mean that we are doing the right action. Let us understand what is the right action. So the Lord says here, yat, which is niyatam, obligatory action. So that action which is done with the attitude that it is my duty. So I don't do it in a grumbling way, or I grudge that type of action, I hate that type of action. No. I do it, I understand it's my duty and it has to be done by me, whether I find it pleasant or unpleasant. This niyatam karma, which is given, the word is given in this verse, obligatory, falls under two categories. One is called nitya karma, the daily obligatory duties that every individual has to do according to time and place. So in the house we have different obligatory duties, at the workplace we have different obligatory duties, to our community we have also different duties, to our country also we have certain obligatory duties. So that is called nitya karma. The second is called naimitika karma, which are occasional duties done whenever the need arises. Example, rituals done during the birth of a child, rituals done to propitiate our ancestors. That also all is our obligatory duties. So how should all obligatory duties be performed? The Lord says here in this verse, with an attitude of sangha rahitam. Sangha means attachment. Rahitam means devoid of that attachment. So sattvic karma is that which one does considering it his duty and doing that duty devoid of attachment, meaning no sense of doership, saying I am the doer, I did this, I did that, or expecting some results as a result of your action. If it is our duty, why should we expect certain results? I do it because it is my duty, full stop. Not because I'm expecting some reward or award, and if I don't get that, I stop doing my duty. So it's very important. So without any rewards of even punyam also. And when I consider myself as a doer of all my duties and responsibilities, I become the karta. Karta means I consider myself the doer. When I consider myself the doer, I will then have to receive the results of the actions. So, from the standpoint of a karta, that means a non-doer, the person performing the action always considers himself to be an instrument in the hands of the Lord. There is no sense of doership. And from the standpoint of the abhokta, the doer mentally accepts every result, karma phalam, favorable and unfavorable, as prasadam from the Lord. There is no emotional resistance to any result. So the Lord says, sattvic karma is that karma which is done as the obligatory duty without attachment. And what is the motivation for doing this duty? So the sattvic person, what is his motivation? His motivation is doing karma, actions, which are aphala prepsuna. Phala means fruit, aphala means devoid of fruit. Aphala prepsuna, devoid of selfish results. So one is not motivated by selfish results and then performs the action. Instead, one is looking at the broader picture, that all the actions I do are for the welfare of my family, for society, for country, and my service to the Lord. Whether there is any personal gain, like name, fame, reward, award, acknowledgement, praise, all that is immaterial. The motive of every sattvic karma is what? It is for inner purification, for stability of the mind, for purifying the mind, and that is what will give us spiritual growth. And if any worldly result comes, whether it comes or not, it is not the motivating factor of their actions. Another quality of sattvic karma that Lord explains here is krita, which is done with araga dvesha, devoid of raga, pleasure. Okay, saying I will gain so much name and praise for that effort, and also devoid of dvesha, not considering the action as painful, troublesome. We grumble while doing the action, we hate doing the action, because it's our duty we have to do it, but we do it by grumbling and call it painful, troublesome action. So, and also not doing action filled with anger and frustration, etc. So sattvic karma is that action which is performed devoid of personal likes and dislikes, whether the action is going to bring us pain or pleasure, loss or gain, or using, or the motive of the action is to destroy somebody else. That is not the deciding factor. The karma yogi follows action based on scriptural knowledge, that is dharma. So that is sattvic action. The Lord says, he concludes in this verse, he says, that action, sattvikam uchyate, is said to be sattvic action. And sattvic action always promotes mental or inner purity. So up to this we will stop today, and when we resume the next lesson, we will carry on with chapter 18 verse 24, which explains about rajasic action or rajasic karma. Hari Om Tat Sat.